I am confused by people who say they love us but are never upset when we are treated unjustly. The two simply cannot coexist. A love that's aloof isn't a love I have any use for. I need a love that is troubled by injustice. Austin Channing Brown. Thank you all for joining us this morning in person and on Zoom. Welcome to our Sunday morning gathering. Summit is a liberal religious community bound together by shared principles drawn from world religions, humanist teachings, nature and science, philosophy, and personal practices. We aspire to be a religion of love and inclusion. The mission of Summit is to commit ourselves to building a more compassionate, just, and sustainable world. If you are new to Summit or Universalism, Unitarian Universalism, would like to know more about us, we invite you to go to our website, summituuf.org. We have some announcements this morning. Our first is Aaron. Are you accompanied by Al? Great.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Happy Sunday. I am Erin. I'm one of the co-chairs of the Social Justice and Action Committee. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Okay. Yeah, I'm Al, and I'm the co-chair of the Social Justice and Action Committee, and also a co-chair of the upcoming interfaith shelter that starts in March. And sign-ups start in first Sunday in February. And so we're both online and in person this year. So looking forward to your help. I can use everybody, so all sorts of things. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Al. And to follow up on that, again, today we have a meeting in the library at 12:30 for the Social Justice and Action Committee. It'll also be on Zoom. We are going to discuss the shelter. Again, the shelter is going to be from March 9th to the 23rd, so we need everybody's help. Also, I'd like to acknowledge Dan and Melody will be helping with the shelter. If we could have a big round of applause. And also just an update, thank you to all that donated to the food and toiletry drive. We are now going to be shifting just collecting toiletries for Grossmont College's Gizmos Kitchens for the students and staff there for non-perishables. And I'd like to say this is also Martin Luther King weekend, so I want to acknowledge that and his quest for racial justice and equality in our country. So thank you.
Pam, you have an announcement?
Hi, I'm Pam Williams. Hi, and I'm running a photo contest, a new beginning photo contest. And you guys, I put it in the newsletter. The newsletter came out Thursday morning, and I haven't gotten any pictures yet. So I'm a little shaky, but it's going to run through mid-February. And Pat Summers, who thought it was a wonderful idea, and so she energized me some more. She said, we're all photographers. We all have our iPhones or whatever the other word for them, mine's an iPhone. We all can take pictures. So have fun, submit the ones you like that you think reflects our new beginning. So I'm gonna take one unless someone says, no, don't take my picture. Please don't say that. May I take, okay, if there's quiet for 10 seconds, then I'm gonna snap. Let's see what I can, that gives me a chance to set our sin. Okay, there's one. We need more people here today. Big smiles, everyone. Smile. Okay, thank you. So I'm in the directory. You can do it in a text, and I gotta remember to look at my text so that I get all your pictures, and I promise I'll do that. Or an email, then that's safer, but not as easy. But please send me your pictures.
Thank you, Pam. Is this announcement with your contact info in the e-news?
It is in the.
Okay, so Pam is, we have several Pams here in the congregation.
And Pam, what is the photo contest for?
That's a secret.
There you go, a little bit of extra mystery.
Exciting. Okay, I'm not sure if this is a typo. We have an announcement from Clark Kent.
Excuse me, I'm a little disheveled here. I was supposed to contact Superman. He was going to be appearing outside of a phone booth in Santee, but I've been walking around Santee for 3 hours and can't find a phone booth. Don't they have those here anymore? Anyway, Wonder Woman asked me to contact Superman, but I guess I'll have to make the announcement in his place. There is an auction occurring here this coming Saturday, and you are all cordially invited. And there are these cards that will tell you how to register. You don't need X-ray vision or anything. You can use your phone to capture this little square and it'll take you to the registration site, or you can use the old-fashioned way and type in the registration site. But please register and purchase a ticket before you arrive, because people who are working on the registration would really prefer if you do it in advance rather than wait in line and try and do it on site, okay? So both register if you are interested in the silent auction, but if you're coming in person, register and buy a ticket as well. The ticket will get you a drink, okay? Now, the other thing that's different about the auction this year is it starts way earlier, okay? It's in the daytime. It starts at 3 p.m., okay? That's when we have appetizers and silent bidding. The 3 p.m., okay? 3 to 4:30, all right? And then, thank you, Lois. And then at 4:45 p.m. is the live auction, okay, which is always a lot of fun, and there'll be desserts as well, okay? If you need more information, Erin?
I think on Thursday night there's a volunteer party to help out.
Okay, I was unaware of that. Okay. So I'll hand out these cards. They're available in the lobby, and we look forward to seeing you there.
Thank you, Mr. Kent. So nice of you to drop in. Our land acknowledgement. We stand upon land that carries the footsteps of many generations of Kumeyaay people, which stretches from the shores of the Pacific Ocean south to Ensenada, east to the sand dunes of the Colorado River in Imperial Valley, and north to Warner Springs Valley. We acknowledge that this fellowship resides on unceded Kumeyaay land and honor the spirit and continuing presence of the Kumeyaay Nation. And I'd like to just mention, in addition to reading our land acknowledgement, it's important that we pay attention to what's going on outside of Summit. And I read yesterday about the commercial trip to the moon that was launched a couple days ago, but unfortunately they had a mishap mid-flight, so I'm not sure what's going to happen to it now. It's unmanned, there's no crew aboard, but was carrying some cremated remains of an individual, and the plan was to essentially use the moon as a gravesite. And this aroused the concern of many of the Native American individuals in our country who have been working to raise awareness about the moon and ask the question, who owns the moon? And do we want to use it as a gravesite? And for the Native American culture, it's the moon is a very reverential entity, and so they are concerned that it be used with reverence by all of the world. We'll now stand and sing. Oh, I'm sorry, we have our chalice lighting. This is by Reverend Margot Reinhardt, Into the Liberating Light. May this chalice bring us to the precipice of truth, where nothing can be hidden from the flames, and may we find the reckoning place where our souls burst open and into the liberating light. Now let's stand and sing our hymn. Fray todos bajo el gran sol, surge esperanza, fe, amor, verdad y belleza cantando de cada tierra, cada voz. From all who dwell below the skies, let faith and hope with love arise. Let beauty, truth, and good be sung through every land by every tongue. May love be the spirit of this fellowship. May the quest for truth be its sacrament, and service be its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge and freedom, and to help one another in fellowship. This is our aspiration.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Casey Marie Pandell. I am the minister here at Summit. Whether it is your first visit or your 5,000th visit, you are whole, you are holy, you are loved, and you are so welcome here. Our reading this morning is a short story from the Reverend Jonathan Chapman. I want to make a point of saying this is Reverend Jonathan Chapman's story. Sometimes people get confused. Recently, I ordered 4-foot-tall rainbow bunnies for my church. Just after I hit order, I wondered if we really needed them. Later that day, one of my parishioners sent me a picture taken in front of another local church. On the lawn was an enormous banner with a picture of the Holy Family and the message, God's marriage equals one man plus one woman. Often people ask me why my church constantly hangs banners welcoming folks, particularly the LGBTQ community. They wonder why we're always lugging out our rainbows. This is why. Because you see, every church says everyone is welcome, but many of them make that a conditional welcome. You're welcome, but not your relationship, or who you love, or how you look, or how you think, or how you behave, or how you believe. Most churches don't put up banners like the ones I saw, but many of them are not far off from sharing the same sentiment. Listen, people can think what they want and believe what they want, and I don't have to agree with everyone. And they don't have to agree with me. But as long as there are congregations willing to limit God's welcome, ours will work hard to widen that welcome. As long as there are churchgoers who question the depth of God's love, we will keep hoisting our banners and hauling our doors that proclaim its breadth. The truth is that we will fall short, and we do, but we keep trying because, you see, there are people in the world who wonder if God can really love them, if God could love them despite who they love. And in case that's you, there is no despite about it. God could love you, God does love you, and so does this church. welcome to worship.
Thank you, Pastor Casey. Let's rise now and sing, as we're able and willing. We are a gentle, angry people. Music by Holly Near, played by Barbara Scheidker.
So one thing, if you want to look at it in the hymnal, to be aware of, verse number 5, in the spirit of our evolving understanding of the breadth of gender, Holly Near changed her words. If you have the hymnal in front of you, verse number 5 says, "We are gay and straight together." But she has changed the words to "We are all in this together." So, you know, if you're reading it on the screen, it's been changed. But this is for the people using the hymnals.
We are a gentle, angry people.
I know we're still getting used to changing things as we go. I know that we do not currently have any written joys and sorrows for this week, and no one has emailed any to me. So as a reminder, we have our joys and concerns table. You can write one before the service on Sunday and leave it and light a candle, and myself or one of our service associates will share that during the service. If you would like to send one before service, you can email or text me, and I will make sure that happens. We know that some folks may be holding on to joys or sorrows today. There's always time to add them during the community gathering at the end of service. But for those joys that are unexpressed, those sorrows that are held tightly to, we hold you in our hearts always. And our Time for All Ages today is a book written by Jessica Herthel and Jazz Jennings with pictures by Sheila McNicholas entitled I Am Jazz. And we managed to get tech to do what it was supposed to do, not the tech team, the tech actually working, because I got it wrong last night. Perfect. I am Jazz. I am Jazz. For as long as I can remember, my favorite color has been pink. My second favorite color is silver, and my third favorite color is green. Here are some of my other favorite things: dancing, singing, backflips, drawing, soccer, swimming, makeup, and pretending that I'm a pop star. But most of all, I love mermaids. Sometimes I even wear a mermaid tail to the pool. My best friends are Samantha and Casey, and we always have fun together. We like high heels and princess gowns or cartwheels and trampolines. But I'm not exactly like Samantha and Casey. I have a girl brain, but a boy body. This is called transgender. I was born this way. When I was very little and my mom would say, "You're such a good boy," I would say, "No, Mama, good girl." At first, my family was confused. They'd always thought of me as a boy. And as I got a little older, I hardly ever played with trucks or tools or superheroes, only princesses and mermaid costumes. My brothers told me this was girl stuff, but I kept right on playing. My sister says I was always talking to her about my girl thoughts and my girl dreams and how one day I would be a beautiful lady. She would giggle and say, "You're a funny kid." Sometimes my parents would let me wear my sister's dresses around the house, but whenever we went out, I had to put on my boy clothes again. That made me mad. Still, I never gave up trying to convince them. Pretending I was a boy felt like a lie. Then one amazing day, everything changed. Mom and Dad took me to a new doctor who asked me lots and lots of questions. Afterward, the doctor spoke to my parents, and I heard the word transgender for the very first time. That night at bedtime, my parents both hugged me and said, "We understand now. Be who you are. We love you no matter what." This made me smile and smile and smile. Mom and Dad told me that I could start wearing girl clothes to school and growing my hair long. They even let me change my name to Jazz. Being Jazz felt much more like being me. Mom said that being Jazz would make me different from the other kids at school, but that being different is okay. That's important, she said, and it's important that I'm happy with who I am. Being Jazz caused some other people to be confused too, like the teachers at school. At the beginning of the year, they wanted me to use the boys' bathroom and play on all the boys' teams in gym class, but that didn't feel normal to me at all. I was so happy when the teachers changed their minds. I can't imagine not playing on the same team as Casey and Samantha. Even today, though, there are kids who tease me or call me by a boy name or ignore me altogether. This makes me feel crummy. Then I remember that the kids who get to know me usually want to be my friend. They say I'm one of the nicest girls at school. I don't mind being different. Different is special. I think what matters most is what a person is like on the inside. And inside, I am happy, I am having fun, I am proud, I am Jazz. And that's Jazz before transitioning and after. And we invite our young one to to her classes if she'd like. She's also welcome to stay with us today.
Each person is worthwhile, to be kind in all we do. 3, we help each other learn. 4, and search for what is true. 5, all people have a say. 6, work for a peaceful world. 7, the web of life's the way. 8 will bring us back to me and you. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. Now let us stand and sing as we are willing and able. Hymn 1053, How Could Anyone? How could anyone ever tell you you were anything less than beautiful? How could anyone ever tell you you were less than whole? How could anyone fail to notice that your loving is a miracle? How deeply you're connected to my soul. Could anyone ever tell you you were anything less than beautiful? How could anyone ever tell you you were less than whole? How could anyone fail to notice that your loving is a miracle? How deeply you're connected to my soul.
Please join me for a time of silent prayer, meditation, or reflection as I read words from Brian Keeley entitled, All Life is Beautiful. Spirit of life, if you have a lesson for us, it is that all life is beautiful. We are each born into this world who we are, tall or short, with our own color of skin, with our own sexual orientation. How could anyone ever tell us that we are anything less than beautiful, anything less than whole? We pray that this nation and every nation will remember their duty to protect human life, and particularly the lives of LGBTQ persons fleeing danger and death. We pray for those who are forced from their homelands and their cultures and their religions, not because of some fault or sin, but because of who they are, who are placed in grave danger simply for being the person they were born to be. We pray also for the enlightening of governments here and around the world with casual disregard for life, who deport those refugees back to their unfeeling homelands and near certain death. All human beings are born free, equal in dignity and rights. They are endowed with reason and conscience. May we all act towards one another in affirmation of our common humanity. Amen. As I set out on this journey of how to bring the ideas of this week's liberation theology to you all, I realized pretty quickly that I had a lot more questions than answers. The most pressing of which was, why did Robert E. Shore Goss, who I would come to find is one of the preeminent theologians on this subject, make the distinction of calling his chapter in Liberation Theologies in the United States an introduction, gay and lesbian theologies? It struck me as particularly odd for a book published in 2010. There's even a note at the top of one of my pages where I scribbled asking, why not LGBT, why not queer? And as it turns out, it has a lot to do with politics and much less religion, though both aspects play on each other in ways that are directly respondent to each other. To really understand this liberation theology, one must first understand the historical context of gay and lesbian folks in America, and yes, I very specifically mention those two identities. I can't pretend that I can give a holistic history in 300 words or less, but I can tell you that this theology, as it has grown, became as a response of the treatment of gay people in the face of the AIDS crisis, with what Shore Goss calls the religious right, using the tragedy as a way to further demonize and undermine not just the cause of their activism, but the identities and lives of homosexual people as a whole. Responses grew on both sides, with instances of activism breeding hate crimes, with giving more responsive protests increasing after hate crimes. Responses grew on, this led to the creation of organizations like ACT UP, where we see AIDS politics becoming more intersectional than ever before, touching on other issues such as poverty, healthcare, sex work, religious discrimination, and more. Shorgoss states that these changes, especially as gay men followed lesbians into their spaces of political and social understanding, required new, more sophisticated analysis. Identity politics alone was no longer sufficient. And this is in part how we start to see new visions of liberation theology begin to emerge. The push from gay Christians to explore their own theologies was a direct action in the 1970s to engage the church to change its position on the issue. It was a claiming of space. We are here and God made us this way. Multiple books would be published over the next decade, challenging church doctrine that considered gay people abominations. One book in particular, John McNeill's The Church and the Homosexual, is aimed directly at the institution of Catholicism, as well as Catholic LGBTQ folks who needed a message of hope. It addressed not only the unfair treatment of gay Catholics, but highlighted biblical texts which had to this point erroneously been used to other. An example many of you may be familiar with is the story of Sodom and Gomorrah, used for years as a way of pushing back against homosexuality, but in reality, the story is not about homosexuality at all, but about the inhospitability that folks were showing travelers. For 1970, it was pretty revolutionary theological stuff. Further texts would follow with explorations of homoeroticism within biblical texts, moralistic approaches to the treatment of others, encouragement towards optimism. The notion that Christianity is not as bleak for gay and lesbian people as some may think. The Metropolitan Community Church, founded in Los Angeles and still thriving with its own local chapter here in San Diego. Dignity, a Catholic institution, which is still around today, and Integrity, which was Episcopalian but closed roughly 2 years ago, were all created as faith homes specifically for LGBT folks, places of love and support. Worth noting, as we enter into the 80s and 90s, we are still seeing a separation between gay and lesbian liberation theologies, and they're very different. Gay theology centered on the issue of biblical texts being used to justify gay hatred and sought to change the narrative. However, it was fairly single-minded. Gay writers seldom cite lesbian theologians and never engage in criticism of misogyny, nor do they find intersectionality with other oppressions. Lesbian liberation theology, in the perspective of lesbian theologian and Episcopal priest Carter Hayward, focused on critiques on the relationship between homophobia and misogyny, as well as mutuality, which is the idea that we're all free or none of us is free. She talks about the embodiment of the erotic, and her theologies would go on to bridge the gay and lesbian perspectives, as well as becoming the catalyst for preparing the way for specifically queer theologies. But it started with a necessary expansion, engaging gay theology to go beyond its white, middle-class male parameters and address issues of gender, patriarchy, class, and race. It took more than just a few perspectives to evolve. We wouldn't see the term queer theology until the early noughts, in part due to the derogatory nature of the term queer itself. But roots can be traced to LGBT activists reclaiming the term, coining themselves and their allies as queer as a term of political dissent. And a similar point is made between that for the term theologically. Both queer theology and queer theory lean heavily into destabilizing essentialism in sexuality, gender, and identity. We are more than just the sum of what people think is normal. But an important thought comes from queer theology. Defying traditional family values as upheld by the religious right, queer folks have long created their own chosen families, which has grown to include adoption and procreation. We all know that the religious right likes to say, if you don't have children, you're not a family. Some texts have used biblical sourcing as a way to bolster LGBTQ+ relationships. Indeed, there is a theory that these relationships are a threat to traditional family values in that they do not adhere to the Christian norm, with Shorgoss stating, and go with me on this one, queer theological reflections on marriage, erotic desire, and new configurations and non-heterocentric and patriarchal models of family provide a liberating edge and challenge to Christian family values and its incoherent theologies of marriage. In other words, families can be and are more than what is dreamt of in some philosophies. We've touched briefly, oh so briefly, on the L, the G, and the Q, but that leaves us with the T and the B. And unfortunately, very little has been done in the sphere of bisexual theology, though Shorgoss does not attempt to explain why. My own curiosity has not come up with a suitable explanation, but considering bisexual marginalization in some LGBTQ spaces, I wonder if it just may not have much steam or support yet. There has been, however, some extensive theology in the last 20 years engaging transgender identities and bodies, with female to male theologian Justin Tanis focusing on God as part of the creation process. For example, God makes no mistakes, and we are as intended. His understanding is that a person's transition is a calling, with transitioning being considered a revelatory experience. And he leans heavily into the idea of variety and diversity as a means to helping communities become more welcoming to transgender folks. One of the many theological explorations cited that piqued my interest, in part because of their reflections from a feminist context, was Virginia Mollencott's Omnigender, where she pushes back against the gender binary, highlighting a plethora of gender expressions from biblical sources, including the angels, and gives a solid what-for to the gender fundamentalism found in some Christianity. And she does this in favor of a vision of God that is humane, affirming, and loving to all folks, no matter what their presentation is. Closely followed is Vanessa Sheridan's call for transgender folks to make their own way within churches, not to pull away and begin new spaces, but to work for justice and acceptance within those already existing. There's plenty of variance within these theologies, as with anything, and they are not only responses to political happenings, but they are a product of an individual's own contexts and experiences. It's kind of the point of a personal theology, building of a spiritual understanding based on our own needs, emotions, and perspectives. One thing seemingly inherent in many, though not all, LGBT or queer theology, however, is the need for deconstructing and recovery from the harmful abuses of previous churches. Many LGBT scholars, for this reason, have focused on the idea of God as friend, not God as enemy, and always hold love at the core, reminding people that we are all made in God's image, despite what the others' interpretations have stated. Shorgosh shares that a queer reading of text differs from traditional readings in that the focus is not as God the Father, but God as equal, giving folks the opportunity to view the Bible through their own lens of experience and engage in what professor and theologian Stephen Moore describes as exegetical activism, which is to say, activism through interpretation. This allows for readers to become co-creators in their own theology of meaning, working as an act of rebellion against the harmful narratives they've been raised in. These theologians have allowed for empowerment in exegesis, and they have paved the way for even more liberative interpretations that are more compatible with the lives and experiences of LGBTQ+ folks. Unfortunately, none of this is perfect, however, and there continue to be ways in which theologies can go deeper. One major underpinning, according to the author, is the theology's focus on individualism and changing the one where there are hopes that it can become more foundational to be more substantive, transformative expression of theology that pushes for the liberation of all people. See, liberation theology requires a praxis of community, where each vision for a more just, free, and robust future includes all people, not simply the ones most closely identified with us. Shorgosh sees the lack of this as a sticking point where the theology lacks a pluralism of other social locations outside of gender or sexual identity, and sees that as a block to becoming a call for real social change. As always, I hope you've gotten to this point of the morning and are thinking, wow, I've learned something new. And? Because I certainly don't aim to TED Talk you into a stupor, and I know it probably feels like that a little today. But I think it's important to read these theologies of liberation and try to seek the places where they can feed us and our own search for truth, meaning, and liberation. Where can we find those interconnected places where someone else's experience, though vastly different from our own, can meet ours and smile and say, welcome home? While all liberation theologies pointedly work towards collective liberation from a faith perspective, and each has its own political narratives, to me, LGBTQ+ theology seems intrinsically linked politically and theologically. Almost none of the fresh ideas would have been possible without a political push. Expansion in gay theology was found in part because of the political. The people who came to tend and love the men with AIDS as they were forgotten in hospitals were lesbians. When our politics are informed by our hearts, incredible things can happen and new bridges can be formed, opening up new ways of thinking, seeing, and experiencing. And that's one of the reasons why LGBTQ theology felt so important to bring you this morning. There is so much fear and misunderstanding in the public sphere about gender identity and fluidity, and continued attacks on the lives and loves of our LGBT siblings. We see it every day, in the news, From the banning of books to the doxing of trans-identified teachers to Florida's Don't Say Gay bill, so much of the fear-mongering we see is in direct relation to the religious rights version of traditional family values. But these theologies that we talked about today, these are correct. We are all made in the image of the divine, and some of us have had to fight a lot harder for people to see that than others. I truly believe there is no loving spirit that would consider any person less than divine for who they love, how they identify, and it's important as a liberation-minded faith community to keep upholding that truth. Society may have made outcasts of our LGBTQ siblings, but God didn't, and neither will we. We must hold firm to that, even and especially on those days where we find ourselves in places of uncomfortable confrontation. Shorgoss called for more pluralism and intersectionality in the faith politics of these theologies, and I call for the same for us. In the face of oppressions and marginalization, we hold the truth of love and divinity in our hands. May we choose to use it for the liberation of all. So may it be, and amen.
Thank you, Pastor Casey. Pastor Casey spoke about community and building a safe place for everyone. That's what we have here, and it's supported by your generous offerings, your donation, your time, your treasure, your talent. Your Sunday morning offering is a gift that provides Summit UU Fellowship the financial resources to help build a better world together. The smallest gift is welcome. For those of you on Zoom, the link can be found in the chat box. Please select the Sunday plate option to allocate your donation to the appropriate account. And now we'll listen to our wonderful pianist, Barbara.
Is a piece by John Wesley Work entitled At a Certain Church from a set called Scuppernong. And John Work was African-American composer, ethnomusicologist, scholar, very deeply into choral music composition. And one of the things that he felt the strongest about was to be able to take these spirituals and to get them out there so people would know them. And so this is 1951, and I'm playing this in memory of our wonderful Martin Luther King Jr.
I'd like to introduce this next piece. This is by our wonderful choir, accompanied by our wonderful Barbara. This is Life is the Greatest Gift of All, words by William E. Oliver, music by James Leith Macbeth Bain, and adapted by Wildemar Hill, arranged by David Dawson.
As I mentioned before, one of the important things about liberation theology is the fact that it takes all of us together to create these theologies, these spiritual dealings, these thoughts that fight for the liberation of everyone. It takes us being aware of others' experiences. It takes us being open to hearing the stories that others will bring us. In the case of this week's stories, it took a lot of really painful history during the 70s and 80s. As we go forth today, may we find the places in our hearts that we can open up to others' experiences every day, more than just when we're here together on a Sunday. And knowing that at the end, what we all hope for is liberation for all, because none of us is free until all of us is free. Amen, shalom, salam, namaste, ashe, and blessed be. Go now in peace. May the light within you be a blessing to the world.
We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Thank you all for being here today. After a closing circle song, we will have a 5-minute break. Then please be seated if you wish to participate in our community gathering. After our community gathering, you are all invited to go to the salon for refreshments and fellowship.
And at 12:30 in the sanctuary is our first grief group, if you will not be attending the social action meeting today.